Good afternoon, fans. What little fans I might have. I don't think I've got many, but that's okay. I do have a lot of people that call me all the time, wanting to know more about spiritual advice. Some of the things we talked about on David Nino Rodriguez, good friend of mine, talked about the fact um, that we do have control of our health care, that we do have control of the spiritual realm around us, because with light, darkness flees. And if you can get control of that one single fact, you can take control of a lot of things that are going on around you. Today's article that I'm going to read for you and try to explain, maybe narrate, is called "The Critical Mass of Spiritual Thermonuclear Reaction: A Continuation of Nino News." A report on climate change, something that he was talking about kind of a lot in his last few videos. Before we do that, before I get started with that, I'd like to bring to your attention that I do have a couple of books for people who are interested in maybe finding out a little bit more about what we teach with spiritual therapy, mind, body, and spirit. One of the books, my first one that I published, was called, let's see if I can get this thing, you can see it, Heal Yourself for God's Sake. It is a book that actually tabulates a lot of the experiences I had over the last 25 years, miracles that I've seen when I put God into the therapeutic process. And the other one's called Quantum Ascension, both by Peter Colla, both available on Amazon. You can also write me or call me at, you can write me at you can check out my contact information at paulorpeter.com and get a hold of me if you want to know more about this, or maybe have some one-on-one sessions and talk about it. Or you can also email me at posture.is.everything@gmail.com, where I will tell you how you can write us, order a book directly from us, and then I'll send it to you, a signed copy with a blessing. Of course, always a blessing. Anyways, on to this. The continuation of Nino's news report on climate change. It doesn't take much of an observer, my fellow gerbils in the cage of wheel running we call life these days, to recognize something out there is not kosher. Boy, we sure are lemurs in a cage these days. Dam breaking all over the place, multiple floods in key places that have seldom, if ever, occurred. I'll tell you what, I have never seen so much flooding going on in places I've never even heard of. I mean, Europe, Tanzania, they're even talking about flooding in Arizona. I mean, we're in the middle of the freaking desert down here, and yet there's flooding everywhere. Well, we do know about the flooding of the Dums. We know about Washington. We do about New York City. There's flooding, and of course, Wuhan, things like that. But my God, flooding, it is biblical. It really is. Laptops with boatloads of incriminating evidence suddenly showing up in the most improbable places. We don't even need to talk about that. And finally, dark-minded, seemingly half-wit people opening their flaps, spouting off about all kinds of statements of such idiocy. You'd wonder if the jackasses back on the farm are not laughing their asses off at the silly absolute levels of absurdity, the buffoonery, the self-destruction, let alone the self-incriminating these idiots seem to spout. I don't know how these people get to be politicians. I mean, are they, it does say in the word that God says in the end, he will make the people who believe themselves to be the smart ones, he'll make them to be idiots. That is so true these days. I mean, you can't make it up. It's almost like they got a written script that, here, let's go out there and try to be as dumbass as you can possibly be. An article or two ago, we delved into an almost Twilight Zone-like appearance of the majority of the world's billionaires. And Nino reported on this. That seemed to assemble in a sort of faux Bilderberg. So they kind of got together and decided, hey, let's decide together how we're going to move forward in the concerns of the world, mainly climate change. Oh, so they're going to decide how they're going to affect climate change. These spoon-fed Nazis can care about a flying fart about our woes or the rest of us, except possibly how they can squeeze out another pound of flesh, or maybe decide amongst themselves the countries, the birth certificates, or the bottles of baby blood they happen to appropriate from the rest of us. You know, they don't, whatever. Okay. But what they do seem particularly interested in on every line item of their Mickey Mouse joint smoking little black book brother boy band brochure, every step of the way is this climate change agenda or its effect on basically our supposed salvation. They're going to help us. You know, what could climate change have a rat's ass to do with it? With the least with the big C word, OV, hash mark ID, or the, or election theft, how to rid the world once and for all of Trump, or the fact that there is a worldwide mad hunt out for pedo asses. I mean, that's what they were all worried about. That's what every one of their sentences in their little brochure were about. And how is it affected by COVID? I'm sorry, threw that word out there. I didn't mean it. Censors, don't nail me. How it's affected by climate change. So, well, I would say nothing, but then I'd be only looking through their physical eyes and not the spiritual eyes. And what the real agenda is. I like to look through spiritual eyes. Among and around these nerdy pussy whipped little boy buggers. Before we examine the spiritual side of the attack, and oh yes, my brother and sister, it is spiritual. Ever so apparent from someone who happens to be looking, as any disease, infirmity, break, or the basic baseball bat in the back of the head, let us look at how ridiculous these images of climate change really are. They are all the same. All those above that I just mentioned, those are all spiritual attacks. Yes, before we delve into the truth, or in this case, the false intention of the curse behind these ideas, we need to look at the absolute absurdity of climate change and how the very thought of it is a sort of slap in the face of God. At least the audacity of people to think that they have the power or the industries or the manipulation to actually change for good something that God created for all of us and called everlasting. He said it in his word. I mean, he's not a liar. If he says it's everlasting and he created it for us, he didn't create it for them. As I reported in my articles in the past, I have quite a bit of interest in astronomy and astrophysics. I like that. So this is a topic I used to love to dabble in. Even remarkably, what was remarkable was the multitudes of changes, what the scientists refer to as constants, measurements, or various theories taught to our children, or at least best theorized about, yet they continually taught them as fact, even long past after they were proven to be false. I'm not going to even get into the many that they were. I can remember when I was a kid, one of them was for the fact that the nearest star, Alpha Centauri, was supposed to be so freaking far that it was literally, even if you traveled at the speed of light, it would take thousands of years to get there. Now suddenly, it's only a few light years away. Wait a minute. Did it get closer? Or maybe they had to make it closer so that, anyways. Okay, yet these things are always being taught to our children, and they they continue to charade this along even long after it's proven false. Examining climate change from an astrophysical perspective, though, actually demonstrates much more believable, and I may add, more measurable, the absolute absurdity of the idea that could actually influence the entire Earth in the least. Without getting too much into the infinite factors out there in the world that influence our planet, many more than our meager inputs and certainly much less than the curses or desires of those boobs mentioned above can bring, just the sunspots alone, when they are prevalent or completely absent, as in the case of subsequential periods lasting years, even tens of years, changes in the worlds of climates are so dramatic, especially regarding the temperature, because of the radiating heat from the sun. So dramatically quantitative are these differences, it would mimic the heat of the entire nuclear arsenal of the Earth being detonated simultaneously to perhaps account for the mere differences in a few months, let alone years. Now, you get what I'm saying? When they have sunspots, the sun is hotter. So it's bathing the earth with radiation or with heat, and that causes the temperatures to rise. But in periods when the sunspots are lower, the temperature is lower, and we have an increase of cold. Okay, so and those go in regular periods. I mean, they've had them for hundreds, if not now, even a few thousands of years, and they're able to see those periods historically. Even had a mini ice age in like the 1600s, which if it wasn't for potatoes, half of Europe would have been wiped out. Climate change. All right. That's nothing compared to sunspots. Scientists don't have to look far, off studying core samples in the Arctic or the Arctic glaciers, or even easier access to the rings of old trees such as the great North American giant redwoods, who have, by all apparent observations, don't ever die. They just keep growing, and they have only one natural enemy: us, men. Men with saws, You can't even burn things, because if they have a forest fire, they just suffer for a year or two and then they come right back. What's amazing about those redwoods is they never found one older than 6,000 years old. Well, they never die, but suddenly 6,000 years ago, they all started simultaneously showing up. Okay, whatever. We won't get into that discussion today. I'd like to see those pimple-faced computer geeks try to wrestle with the power of a single sandstorm or the devastating withholding of blessings drought brings. God really is the one in charge, especially when they purpose to open the eyes of people who are busy praying to their idols of clay and wood to hear the voice of God when he speaks. They are too busy praying to their idols. The influence of the entire planet with their little chemtrails of the ashes of dead people in hamburgers, let alone their pathetic prayers to Bullock at the Bilderberg. I guess I wonder if I could say his name, which frolics, through the forest naked, if you suppose the more powerful men in this world seem to think they're more powerful than the sun's atomic bomb energy like stuff. How silly they must appear to the angels, or how ridiculous when they sit around and they try to play with their little spells and the angels laugh, knowing how pathetic they really are when they think they can influence the entire earth. Okay. But isn't that how they do it? They present up a lie that seems to direct influence on us, like offered in like a sort of Pandora's box of a little virus, too small to see, touch, smell, or feel. Somehow they're going to tell us that the world we see and God has given us is different, changed, altered by these invisible threats. They try completely to describe us in a way they describe these things in a way that is so unfathomable that the smallest members of society have a prayer to understand it, or that only the smartest members of society have a prayer to understand it. And yes, of course, they're educated by them and they're on their payroll. So they're the ones that understand this stuff that they're trying to preach to us, that we'll never understand because it's just a big chalk full of numbers that they say, well, this is what it really means right here. Bullshit. The opposite. They feed us completely opposite what we actually experience and sense. Like diapers on our faces when we're jogging in the park, or the jabs for sickness, for some coming sickness that they're predicting is going to happen, 8 months from now. So they give you a jab so that you can thwart it off. Give me a break. Or like elderly needing to sit 6 feet apart at dinner, even though they might be together and sleep in the same bed. I seen it. That's what they're doing. Yet here you go, because some rat-faced doctor somewhere says it's what we have to do to obey without question. They tell us what we are to believe, pay the teachers to teach their lies, pay the politicians to support their agenda, which coincides with those lies. They tweak the system so it benefits and fulfills their plans, and ultimately becomes a very instrument they would use to chain us in prison of their construct, then laugh at us. Well, now they don't laugh first, but they first cheat and stuff the ballot shoe boxes So their guys get in and give back all the money that it cost them. Then they laugh at us because we're the ones who pay for it. No wonder they smile like jesters. 33rd jesters, by the way, 33rd Masons jesters. No, they don't believe in climate change any more than the ridiculous contradictions that we see around us. They believe in change in perspective, change in our awareness, of which they want a total control, to rule with absolute authority and bring us under total submission, regardless of the idiocy or the illogic of the command. Their ultimate goal is to get us to voluntarily sign up on with our own part, our own perception of the world, not based on truth, but the lie they feed us. Then to facilitate any friggin' thing they want, as long as it follows the ultimate desire of one world rule, one world finance, one world media, opinion, and one world government, the one world they run the show. And we shut our mouths, do our work, give them our women and children, and die in a neat and orderly military fashion the way they tell us to. The good news, they can't do it on their own. No, they can't. They can't change the whole world. They can try, but they can't do it. They're not powerful enough. And they certainly can't do it if the curse, the spiritual side of it, the infinite part, is removed. Okay? Remember the earlier lessons. Small physical, big mental, infinite spiritual. Remove their spiritual, they're only left with that little squeaking mouse down there, that little cockroach. Okay? They can't change the whole planet. Oh, sure, they can change a small part of it in a short term. Yeah, they can do that. It's been scientifically proved that they can alter the weather. I mean, it's possible. They've been doing that for 100 years, dumping stuff in the clouds, cloud seeding, they called it. You know, in order to cause the clouds to rain. It's been done. It's scientifically proven. There's an ability of that. So why wouldn't they try it? But it can't affect the whole dang world. They can pollute a small corner of the ocean. They can facilitate a small patch of tissue to revolt and become tumors in our body. But they can't change the whole body. Okay? God, when they pollute a small corner of the ocean, God's water then disperses the particles so meticulously throughout the entire body. It's called the law of diffusion. It's where you drop of ink into a glass, and by the end of the afternoon, it's so diffused you can't even see the ink anymore. Do it in a swimming pool, it spreads out through the whole pool. Do it in a lake, it spreads out through the whole lake. Do it in the ocean, it spreads out through the whole ocean evenly. Eventually, there's trillions of gallons for every molecule as it spreads out. The influence of that one molecule in a trillion gallons of whatever is nothing. And take away its curse, and it certainly is nothing. God is the water. Okay, God is the water. So he's empowered the water with his good. By the time the poisons and the radiation and the food dye and the plastic particles or one of Hillary's turds completely dissolves and spreads out like a molecular concentration per trillion gallons is less than one or more atoms of the original, good luck of having an effect without the power of the curse behind it. Diseases, poisons, attacks, so-called RNA manipulations, nanobots or knots, take away their curses, and they're left with a few molecules of substance among trillions of cells. They can't infect it and thus affect them all in our body. Don't be afraid. Even if you mistakenly did get turn the power of your light on. It removes the curse. God's water will do the rest. It'll clean up that mess and remove that from you. We put on the light of truth on it, and the power of God's spoken word into the mix, and the lightsaber turns on. The darkness flees. The water of our bodies does the rest. And God himself said, I am the living water. And that's not just some arbitrary statement to make us feel good. The devil does not have the power to make us sick, nor does he have the power to kill us. If he had, he would have decimated the entire population eons ago. Okay? He doesn't have the power to change anything God's created. We might. We do it because we're co-creators. And through his coax and manipulations, lies, and deceit, he gets us to go along in the short term. But it too relies dramatically on us, our participation, our agreement, even to have this mouse farts of a chance in a whirlwind. They're desperate now. The hunters are being hunted. They have to show themselves. They have no cards left. They know it's only a matter of time before enough people will wake up. Before the images they have pasted in front of us, the racism, BLM, bald Lucifer Moloch, crazy politicians, hate-filled media, ridiculous athletes that preach noble causes from their multi-million-dollar locker rooms and their pizza parties, stage false flags of this and that, fake deaths, women actors who are really men, male actors who've been so compromised they can't piss without permission, bogus pandemics, curses in the place of medicine, poisons instead of food, theft and torture of our children, the stealing of our loved ones for their sacrificial tables. Oh, when we find out who did it and exactly how they did it, because we know it was done, we're coming. And heaven help you when we find out. Some of the critical mass of awareness will take place through the world. Soon, sorry, I made a mistake there. Soon, the critical mass of awareness will take place throughout the world. Enough people, regardless of the side of the aisle, will see the reality of the evil before us. Another night, another light in an obscure corner of the war will turn on, and that one critical piece of catalyst will be dropped into the bucket. And that will be enough for the entire planet to be bathed in an explosion of light. And that, then what little power and protection they have will flee like a wet cat with his tail on fire. Taking any curse these buttheads might have ever hoped for and leave them just standing there looking stupid. As the rest of us grabs our pitchforks and our torches and storms the castles to initiate some real righteous Lion of Judah, Jesus Christ ass whooping. Yep. And for those who've not only betrayed their own kind, but have sought the enslavement, damnation, and even deaths of innocents. In his own words, not mine, for those who have done so, you're either for Christ, good light, or you're against him. It would be better for him that he was not born than to betray the Son of Man. That's what happens when they kill innocence. Yeah? They're betraying their very essence. Even animals don't do that. It's all the same, my brothers and sisters. It's all spiritual. All these things that happen to us. And we are climbing out of that valley with every truth we take in our hands. And every time we pass a truth on, or pass on a video to somebody else and say, hey, watch this, I really like this, and that person receives something good from God, you are partially responsible. You are part of the healing process in that person. You become a healer. You become an apostle. The apostles were nothing but messengers. They watched something, they watched Jesus do something, they heard the stories, and he empowered them to go out and spread the word. Yeah, that's what we are. End times warriors, truth tellers. We are out there not winning countries or hills or foxholes or marks on our bedpost for kills. No, we're out there fighting for souls, souls of our brothers and sisters. That's what we're fighting for. I would love to have you guys join me. If you like these videos, please subscribe. I'm just getting started with this. Nino's been prompting me he told me to do it, so I'm doing it, giving it a shot. Why not? And then, they're not monetized. At least I don't think so. I haven't really figured that out yet. But we do need help. We've been fighting this battle of healthcare, trying to inject God into the healthcare system. Every time we do it, we seem to get, the minute the system finds out, we're on our asses again and kicked out. They take the patient away from us, and then that's the way it is. So we've struggled. But that's okay. We're doing all right. We print our books. We give them away to people if we can. We sell them. That's what we do. If you like this stuff and you'd like to learn more, you can subscribe. You can also find out, I've written a lot of stuff on paulorpeter.com. Check it out. Subscribe. That's free. All my writings, almost all of it's on there. And there's even access to my books. You can download free copies if you like. And way to contact us, talk to us if you like. And if, by the way, if you happen to know some guys like Charlie Ward, Simon Parks, Mel K, I'm a big fan. Those guys, of course, Nino. I would love to talk to them. I'd really love to. So if you happen to see this, Charlie, if you see this and you would like to talk to me, give me a call or send me an email or send me your number. I'll call you. That goes for all the rest of them. I just met Kirsten W. Love her. Great. Jacko. Man. So have a good one and bless you.